Bombshell. Judge Pedraz is now considering charging Pedro Sanchez's PSOE with operating as a criminal organization. Let's get started. Music. Hello everyone and welcome to a new edition of Precautionary Measures. Pay close attention to the exclusive information we're revealing in Precautionary Measures. Because later you'll hear about it, maybe in a while, in a few weeks, in a few months perhaps. And you'll say, hey, that sounds familiar, did someone mention it somewhere? Well, yes, it was on Precautionary Measures. Pay attention because the judge of the National Court, Santiago Pedraz, is already preparing and studying the indictment of the party. The Socialist Party of Pedro Sanchez for a crime of criminal organization within the framework of the so-called SEPI scheme. We'll explain all the details of this important information. If you haven't yet, remember to subscribe to the Medidas Cautelares channel. We are already close to 133,000 subscribers, and our next goal, as you know, is to reach 150,000. And now let's get right into sharing this very important information. What is it? We are revealing it exclusively. There you have an image of Pedro Sanchez. Spain responds. Well, yes, justice is going to respond to your corruption. The head of the Central Investigating Court number 5 of the National Court, Santiago Pedraz, is considering charging Pedro Sanchez's PSOE with the crime of criminal organization. All of this is due to the active participation of the political party in the criminal activities of the PSOE's dirty operations within the so-called SEPI scheme. You already know that the SEPI scheme, let's say, has two main branches. One, the dirty operations of Ley 10 of La Fontanera, and the other, the awards and contracts of SEPI itself. There are two parts of this procedure that are being investigated. The secrecy order has already been lifted on the dirty operations part of La Fontanera Ley 10. And on the other hand, the gag order still needs to be lifted on the contracts and awards part. Regarding SEPI, which could be revealed in the coming hours or days. Well, attention, Pedro is in charge of SEPI in this scheme, in the branch uncovered in the sewers of the plumber. On the other hand, plumber. Another thing is that the gag order on the plumber part needs to be lifted. Lift the gag order, plumber. Santos Cerdán, the plumber of the political party Ley 10, the businessman Javier Pérez Dolcet, the former presidency advisor of the Junta de Andalucía, Gaspar Zarias, and the lawyer Ismael Oliver for crimes of criminal organization. Multiple crimes of bribery, disclosure of secrets, inducement to false testimony, false accusation, forgery of commercial documents, malfeasance, influence peddling, and crimes against state institutions. It is also investigating the lawyer Jacobo Tejero, known as the lawyer of the sewers, and the civil guard, the traitor Juan Sánchez Yepes, for crimes of disclosure of secrets, bribery, and crimes against state institutions. Well then, the legal sources. Legal sources say Judge Santiago Pedraz's order allowing entry into the PSOE headquarters on Ferraz Street, remember that, concerns precautionary measures. From last May 27, that is just 10 days ago, it already anticipates the possible indictment of the Socialist Party as a legal entity for the crime of criminal organization. The agents of the Central Operative Unit of the Civil Guard, UCO, requested the Socialist Party's compliance program during that entry, or compliance program, a preliminary step before the indictment of the political party. For a legal entity, in this case the Socialist Party as a party, to be indicted for the crime of criminal organization, it is required that the criminal organization itself acts for the benefit of the entity or makes use of its structure. Well, Pedraz has already directly pointed to the former Secretary of Organization of the PSOE, Santos Cerdán, and the current manager of the party, Ana María Fuentes. Pedraz would have already identified the former secretary, el propio Partido Socialista. Alright, they say that Pedraz is currently studying the legal framework to charge the PSOE. A charge that, judging by the criminal evidence found so far, is inevitable. Pay attention to what they tell us. The indictment of the PSOE is inevitable, it's just a matter of time. Pedraz already stated in his ruling, I'm quoting because he already said this in his ruling, that a particularly significant element, one that also demonstrates this unity of action and direction, can be seen in the way the costs were covered, and the logistical needs of the activity under investigation were met. At the same time, the analysis of these points also highlights the superior role held by Santos Cerdán. Meanwhile, since he, as the Secretary of Organization of the PSOE, would have made the party's own structure available to the criminal organization, there are exceptions. Here is the key. That from its beginnings bore the cost of the investigated activity, the dirty tricks. It allowed that organization to use its staff for administrative functions. It provided its facilities for holding meetings or bore the logistical costs of some of its members. That is to say, there is no doubt about the direct involvement of the PSOE, about the PSOE's integration into the criminal organization being investigated by Judge Pedraz. In addition, the magistrate emphasized that companies belonging to those under investigation may have been used, with the presumed collusion of the manager of the PSOE organization secretariat, Ana Maria Fuentes, who issued the appropriate orders for the creation of false invoices that allowed the transfer of funds to Lere X. That is, Santos Cerdan, who was the PSOE's organization secretary, and Ana Maria Fuentes, the PSOE's manager. Notice how integrated this criminal organization is within the Socialist Party. And I remind you that the UGIO, precisely in recent days, has asked Judge Pedraz to request information from different banks. All the transactions that have taken place in PSOE accounts from 2024 to the present, precisely to narrow down the financing of the socialist cesspool. Okay, I mean, just look at how involved the PSOE itself is. The same sources consulted emphasized that the Socialist Party could face a double indictment for crimes. First, for a crime of illegal financing that is being investigated by the head of the Central Court of Instruction No. 2 of the National Court, Ismael Moreno. And secondly, for the crime of criminal organization within the framework of the SEPI scheme, which is being investigated by Judge Pedraz. In this last proceeding, pay attention, he could also be charged with a second crime of bribery. In other words, not only would there be a criminal organization within the Socialist Party in the SEPI scheme, but the PSOE could also be charged as a legal entity for the crime of bribery. And you might ask me, when will the Socialist Party be charged? Well, here I have to tell you that the first thing that needs to happen in this investigation is for the judge, together with the prosecutor and the investigators, to investigate, or rather, to study the legal framework of that charge for criminal organization. Second, take statements from the individuals, that is, from the accused, from the people, and then the legal entity, which is the PSOE, could be charged. So I think this will still take a little while. But pay close attention to the consequences of this indictment of the PSOE for criminal organization, because according to the law, the possible dissolution of the party cannot be ruled out, just as you're hearing. According to the law, the Socialist Party could be dissolved for a crime of criminal organization. Let's explain it. The Penal Code recognizes the criminal liability of legal entities in Article 31 bis. Specifically, legal entities are criminally liable when the crime is committed in their name or on their behalf and for their benefit, whether direct or indirect. I believe that in this case there is no room for doubt. Article 570 quota expressly establishes their criminal liability for the crimes of organizations and criminal groups. In this way, main penalties such as fines can be imposed, but aside from fines, and here's the heart of the matter, a possible conviction brings serious additional consequences for legal entities, as set out in Article 33.7 of the Penal Code, among them. Possible dissolution of the legal entity. Suspension of activities for up to 5 years, closure of premises, prohibition from carrying out activities either temporarily or permanently, or disqualification from public contracts and subsidies. And finally, judicial intervention itself. According to the law, these are possibilities that could be applied to the Socialist Party if it is ultimately charged with being a criminal organization and convicted. So, pay very close attention to what might happen. And this is the exclusive information that we reveal in precautionary measures. The judge of the National Court, Santiago Pedraz, is already studying the indictment of the party. The Penal Code establishes the crimes of criminal organization within the framework of the law, a SEPI scheme. Pedraz already, in his order, agreed to the entry and search of the Socialist Party headquarters on Ferraz Street. He already anticipated the direct involvement of the former organization secretary of the PSOE, Santos Cerdan, and the manager of the Socialist Party, Ana Maria Fuentes. in the criminal scheme, in the criminal organization that allegedly used the structure of the Socialist Party itself to cover up and directly finance the illicit activities of the underground network led by the Fixer Lay. The court is considering charging the Socialist Party in the case presided over by Judge Pedraz. Among the possible consequences, if the legal entity were to be convicted, would be the dissolution of the legal entity. En este caso, del partido. The Socialist Headquarters, the Court Judge, Manager Fuentes, Party Secretary, Ana Directa, Organización Socialista, and Cerdán all anticipated the scheme. Within the framework of this scheme, SEPI, these branches of the PSOE's dirty dealings on one hand and the rigged contracts and awards of SEPI on the other, which are what is being investigated in this procedure by Judge Santiago Pedraz, who, it must be said, is doing an exceptional job. Judge Pedraz is endorsing everything requested by the prosecutor's office and the UCO within the framework of this very serious investigation. From Pedro Sanchez's deep state that infiltrated all the institutions of the state, in the prosecutor's office, or even in the civil guard. Any updates? We will report them promptly on Medidas Cautelares. That's all for this edition of Medidas Cautelares. I hope you enjoyed it. And if that's the case, you already know that you can leave your comments, write your opinions, and share the video with whoever you want. Family, friends, and co-workers, for example. And you can also become members like the chosen ones for less than €3 a month, or like the supreme ones for less than €7 a month. You can also make financial contributions via Bizum to continue improving the technical conditions, designs, and graphics of Medidas Cautelares at 627555563770. 627 55 55 63 70. The most important thing, as I always say, is that this information reaches everyone because information is power. See you soon.